Welcome back to another dark corner of Skyrim. Today, I need to tell you about one of the most tragic transformations in all of Tamriel's history. You have fought them in caves and Dwemer ruins. Pale, eyeless creatures that attack without mercy. The Falmer seem like monsters, simple enemies to cut down for experience and loot. But what if I told you they were once something beautiful? What if those twisted beings you kill were once an advanced civilization of elves, with culture and magic that rivaled the Altmer themselves? What if every Falmer you face is a victim of the cruelest betrayal in history, poisoned and enslaved until they forgot they were ever anything more? This is the story of the Snow Elves and their horrifying transformation into the Falmer. This is about what happens when an entire race is systematically destroyed, not just killed, but erased from existence while technically still alive. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. I remember beauty. That is what makes this unbearable. Not the darkness, not the hunger, not even the pain that never ends. It is the memory of what we were, burned into whatever remains of my mind like a brand that will not fade. My name does not matter anymore. Names were for the surface world, for the time when we walked beneath the sun and stars, when we were Snow Elves, when Skyrim belonged to us. You have seen what I have become. If you venture into the deep places, the ruins and caves where even Nords fear to tread, you have encountered my kind. We are the twisted things in the dark, the hunched, pale creatures with empty eye sockets and grasping hands. The Falmer, you call us now. The betrayed, if you know our true name. But I remember the before. I remember standing in the great plaza of our capital, the architecture so perfect it seemed to sing. Every arch and column was placed with mathematical precision. Yet the overall effect was organic, flowing, alive. We did not build with stone and mortar alone. We built with magic, with song, with the very essence of winter itself. Our cities gleamed like fresh snow under moonlight, crystal spires that caught the aurora borealis and fractured it into 1,000 dancing colors. Gardens where we cultivated, snow cedar trees, their white bark glowing with inherent magic, their branches heavy with frost that never melted. Our people were beautiful, tall and graceful like all elven races, but unique. Our skin was pale as fresh snow, unmarked and perfect. Our hair ranged from pure white to the palest blonde, sometimes with hints of blue like ice in shadow. Our eyes, and this is what I remember most, our eyes could see everything. We saw in the darkness better than surface dwellers saw in daylight. We saw the flows of magic in the air. We saw beauty in the frozen wastes that others called barren. We were scholars, mages, artists, philosophers. Our libraries held knowledge that made even the Altmer jealous, though they would never admit it. We understood frost magic in ways no other race has matched, before or since. We could freeze water solid with a thought, create ice sculptures that moved and sang, summon blizzards, or still them with equal ease. Our clothing was woven from materials you have never seen, fabrics that shimmered like snow in sunlight, that kept us warm in the deepest cold, that enhanced our magic. We worshipped Oriel, who you call Akatosh, the dragon god of time, our chief deity, the center of our faith. The Chantry of Oriel was the greatest structure our civilization ever built, a temple complex so vast it covered an entire hidden valley. The way shrines that dotted our land were places of pilgrimage, meditation, enlightenment. To complete the pilgrimage was to touch something divine, but we also honored Trinimac, god of might, Sirabane, god of magical protection, Geoffrey, the storyteller, Finasta, who taught us to lengthen our already long lives. We were a religious people, but not fanatics. We believed the gods gave us gifts so that we might create beauty and seek wisdom. And we were happy. That is the cruelest part. We were happy, not perfect, no civilization is. We had our disputes, our politics, our occasional conflicts with neighboring Dwemer city-states over resources or territory. But these were manageable, civilized. We negotiated, we compromised, we maintained peace. Then the humans came, the Nords, they call themselves now. But when they first arrived from Altmer, they were called Altmorans, refugees from a frozen homeland even harsher than Skyrim. We watched their longships arrive. We debated what to do about them. Some wanted to drive them away immediately. Others advocated for a more measured approach. We were, after all, a superior civilization. What threat could these primitive humans pose? We allowed them to settle. We watched them build their crude wooden structures, so different from our crystalline architecture. We observed their simple magics, their reliance on brute force over finesse. They seemed harmless enough. They kept to themselves mostly, in their settlements. The largest was Sarthol. What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I would like to know if I am the only one who feels this way. Was there the night we attacked Sarthol? I was young then, barely past my second century, a soldier in training, eager to prove myself. I did not question the orders when they came. The elders said the humans had discovered something beneath their city, something that belonged to us, something dangerous. The order was clear: retrieve it and drive them out. We struck at night. Our magic gave us every advantage. Frost spells that froze humans where they stood. Illusion magic that made them turn on each other. We were efficient, professional. Most of the humans died. A few escaped into the night, fleeing back toward their ships and the sea. We thought that was the end of it. We were wrong. One of those who escaped was named Ysgramor. You know that name, I suspect. Every Nord child knows it. Their great hero, their founder, the man who would be our doom. Ysgramor returned, not with a handful of refugees, but with 500 warriors. The 500 companions, legendary in Nord history. But what Nord songs do not tell you is that Ysgramor found an Altmeran named Asidel, who had studied with elven races across Tamriel, who had learned our magics, our techniques, our weaknesses. Asidel taught the companions how to fight us, how to counter our spells, how to kill us. The war was brutal. We had magic and centuries of civilization. They had steel, rage, and numbers that seemed endless. More kept coming from Altmer, wave after wave of them. We won battles. We held territories, but slowly, steadily, we began to lose. The companions showed no mercy. Where we had been professional in our assault on Sarthol, they were genocidal in their response. They did not just fight our armies, they slaughtered our civilians, burned our libraries, shattered our temples. They enslaved those they did not kill, forcing them to build the very cities that would become Nordic strongholds. Whiterun, Windhelm, built with Snow Elf slave labor, erected on the graves of our people. The decisive moment came at the Battle of Mosring on the island of Solstheim. Our greatest remaining war leader, known only as the Snow Prince, led our forces in what was supposed to be our final stand. He was magnificent. I watched him cut through Nord warriors like wheat before a scythe. His skill was legendary, his magic powerful, his presence inspiring. Then a human child, a little girl whose mother the Snow Prince had just killed, threw her mother's sword in grief and rage. It pierced through the Snow Prince's armor, through his heart. He fell, our greatest hero, killed by a child's grief. After that, we broke. Our armies scattered. Our cities fell one by one. The Nords pursued us relentlessly. Some of our people fled to other lands, hoping to find sanctuary elsewhere, in Tamriel. We do not know if they succeeded. Others went into hiding, seeking refuge in the most remote places of Skyrim. A few, like the guardians of the Chantry of Auriel, found sanctuaries so hidden that even the Nords could not discover them. But most of us, thousands upon thousands, went underground. The Dwemer offered us sanctuary. Our cousins, Falmer, a race of deep elves who had built vast cities beneath the mountains. Blackreach was their crown jewel, an enormous underground complex connecting their city-states. When we came to them, desperate and dying, they agreed to take us in. They had conditions. I remember standing at the entrance to Alftand, one of the great lifts that descended into Blackreach. I was among the first group to go down. We had no choice. The Nords were hunting us, killing us wherever they found us. We would take whatever terms the Dwemer offered. The descent took hours, down and down through mechanical shafts the Dwemer had built, past layers of rock, past the depth where any natural cave would exist, down into depths where even darkness seemed to have weight. Then we emerged into Blackreach. If you have been there, you know that Blackreach possesses its own terrible beauty. Enormous glowing mushrooms, some as tall as towers, providing dim blue-green luminescence. Massive geode formations jutting from the ground, an entire ecosystem that exists without sunlight. The Dwemer had built roads and structures throughout, their mechanical aesthetics so different from our organic forms. Giant brass gears and pistons, automatons standing silent guard, the hum of their machines echoing through the vast space. It was impressive. It was horrifying. It would become our prison. The Dwemer gathered us in one of their great halls. Thousands of Snow Elves, all that remained of our race. We stood there, refugees in need of mercy, waiting to hear the full terms of our sanctuary. Their leader spoke in his mechanical voice, so different from the musical tones of our language. He told us we would be safe here. The Nords would not follow us this deep. We would be protected, housed, fed. We would survive. Then came the condition we did not expect. There was a fungus that grew in the deepest parts of Blackreach. The Dwemer called it a special crop, something they cultivated. It was toxic to most races, but the Dwemer had studied it extensively. They had modified it. They knew its properties. They told us we must eat it, exclusively. Nothing else. The fungus would be our only source of food in the underground. We asked why. The Dwemer claimed it was necessary, that the fungus contained nutrients that would help us adapt to underground living, that it would strengthen us for the new life we would lead. Some of our people objected. They sensed something wrong. But what choice did we have? Behind us was genocide. Below us was survival, even at a cost. We ate the fungus. At first, nothing seemed wrong. It tasted bitter, unpleasant, but we were starving. It filled our bellies. It kept us alive. The Dwemer provided it regularly, along with basic housing and supplies. They put us to work, helping maintain their facilities, keeping their vast underground farms productive, assisting with various labors. It seemed reasonable. We were refugees. Of course we would work for our keep. Then the blindness began. It started slowly, a blurring of vision. Difficulty seeing in bright light, though Blackreach had little of that. We thought it was just adjustment to underground living. The Dwemer assured us it was normal, temporary. It would pass. It did not pass. Within a year, the first of us had gone completely blind. The fungus, we finally realized, was poison. Carefully calibrated poison that destroyed the optic nerves, robbing us of our precious eyesight. We begged the Dwemer for other food, any other food. They refused. This was the condition of our sanctuary, they said. Eat the fungus or leave. And leaving meant death at Nord hands. The Dwemer had not offered us refuge. They had offered us slavery, and we, desperate to survive, had walked willingly into our chains. The transformation did not happen all at once. That would have been a mercy. Instead, it crept over us generation by generation, a slow horror we witnessed in ourselves and our children. The blindness came first, as I said. Within 5 years, every Snow Elf who had eaten the fungus was completely sightless. Our beautiful eyes, which had seen magic in the air and beauty in ice, became useless. Then they began to change physically. The eyes themselves withered, sinking back into our skulls, leaving empty sockets that never closed. We adapted as best we could. We had always possessed excellent hearing, and now it became our primary sense. We learned to navigate by sound, by the echoes of our footsteps in the vast caverns, by the drip of water and the hum of Dwemer machinery. We developed a kind of echolocation, making small clicking sounds with our tongues to map our surroundings. It was crude compared to sight, but it kept us from walking into walls. The Dwemer noted our adaptation with what I can only describe as clinical interest. They observed us the way you might observe insects in a jar. They took notes. They made adjustments to their plans for us. The work became harder. What had started as simple maintenance and farming became true labor. Mining the vast geode formations for soul gems, operating the dangerous machinery that processed materials, cleaning the waste from their great mechanisms. Tasks the Dwemer did not want to do themselves. Tasks that were dangerous, degrading, sometimes fatal. When we objected, they had tools to enforce compliance. Ancient torture devices, steam-powered mechanisms designed to cause maximum pain. I watched Dwemer overseers use them on those who refused to work or worked too slowly. The screams echoed through Blackreach for days afterward. The machines were efficient. They broke your body but kept you alive, able to work again once you healed enough. We were no longer refugees. We were slaves. But the physical changes were only beginning. The fungus did not just blind us, it altered us at a fundamental level, changes that passed to our children and intensified with each generation. I watched my daughter born into blindness. That was expected by then. But she was different in other ways, smaller than Snow Elf children should be. Her spine curved slightly, the beginning of the hunch that would become characteristic of our devolved form. Her fingers were longer, more claw-like. Her teeth, when they came in, were sharper than mine had ever been. She never knew the sun, never saw her own face, never experienced beauty with her eyes. She learned to navigate the dark by sound and smell, skills that came to her more naturally than they had to my generation. She was adapting. But each adaptation took her further from what we had been. The worst part was watching her forget. She would ask me to describe colors, and I would try. But how do you explain blue to someone who has never seen? How do you convey the beauty of falling snow, the majesty of the aurora, the precise elegance of our architecture? My words felt hollow. The concepts slipped through her understanding like water through fingers. By the third generation, our language itself began to change. The musical, complex tongue of the Snow Elves required subtle vocalizations, tonal variations that conveyed meaning. But in darkness, with no written language accessible to the blind, with only oral tradition, the language simplified, became harsher, guttural sounds that carried better in the echoing caves. Words were lost, concepts forgotten, poetry reduced to simple commands about work and survival. We tried to hold on to our culture. We tried. Some of us would gather in secret and tell the old stories, recite the prayers to Oriel, sing the songs of our lost homeland. But each telling lost something. Details blurred, facts became legend, history became myth. And the younger generations, those who had never seen the surface, found it harder to care about a world they could not imagine. The Dwemer watched all of this with satisfaction. This was their plan all along, we finally understood. They had not just wanted slaves, they had wanted broken slaves. Slaves who would never rise against them, who would forget they had ever been anything more than what they were now. For generations, we endured. We worked. We suffered. We slowly forgot. Then the Dwemer made a mistake. They became too confident. They treated us as animals, as things, as tools that happened to be shaped like people. They stopped watching us as carefully. They assumed we were too broken, too changed, too helpless to ever be a threat. They were wrong. We still had hate. Even as we forgot our language, our history, our gods, We remembered one thing with perfect clarity. We remembered that we had been betrayed. The Dwemer had destroyed us, made us into monsters, taken everything we were, and crushed it into the dark. Some part of us, deep and primal, held on to that rage. The rebellion started in the deepest parts of Blackreach, far from Dwemer observation. Among the slaves who worked the most dangerous jobs, who had the least supervision, who were considered too far gone to be watched. They were more monster than mer by then, several generations removed from the surface. But they were also strong. The fungus and the hard labor had made us physically resilient, even as it destroyed our higher functions. And we had learned the underground. We knew every tunnel, every passage, every hidden corner of Blackreach better than the Dwemer ever would. The first attacks were sporadic. A Dwemer overseer found dead, his throat torn out, an automaton sabotaged, a section of tunnel collapsed. The Dwemer investigated, but found nothing. How could their sophisticated tracking systems and mechanical guards catch enemies who lived in complete darkness and moved by sound alone? The attacks increased. More Dwemer died. Their facilities were damaged. Their neat, ordered underground kingdom began to experience chaos. They responded with force, sending their metal soldiers into the depths, using their advanced weapons against us. But we had numbers. For every slave they killed, 3 more took their place. We fought with crude weapons fashioned from scavenged materials and Dwemer machines we had learned to operate. We fought with tooth and claw when weapons failed. We fought with a desperation born of having nothing left to lose. The conflict escalated into full war. The War of the Crag, it would later be called, though few know this name. It raged in the depths beneath Skyrim, while the Nords above remained completely ignorant. Decades of brutal underground combat. Battles fought in absolute darkness. Ambushes in narrow tunnels. Dwemer automatons against swarms of twisted former elves. If you have ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I will be reading them. We lost thousands, but we kept fighting. We had become something else by then. Not Snow Elves, not even intelligent in the way we once were, but survivors. Brutal, relentless survivors who would rather die fighting than live another day in chains. Then one day, the Dwemer disappeared. Not defeated, not killed, just gone. Every single one of them vanished in an instant. We went to meet them in battle and found empty halls, silent machines, no enemy to fight. Some event, some catastrophe or apotheosis we do not understand, took the entire Dwemer race in a single moment. Scholars on the surface have theories. None know for certain. We certainly did not know. We were hardly capable of philosophical speculation by then. What we knew was simpler. We were free. The overseers were gone. The torture devices silent. The strict rationing and forced labor ended. Blackreach belonged to us now, but we were not the Snow Elves anymore. That transformation was complete. We were the Falmer, the betrayed, twisted, blind, brutal creatures who barely remembered we had once been something more. We spread through the underground. Blackreach was vast, connecting to countless Dwemer ruins and natural cave systems throughout Skyrim. We claimed them all. We made them ours. We adapted to a life in eternal darkness. Without the Dwemer to provide the fungus in controlled amounts, we had to cultivate our own food. But by then, our bodies were so changed that normal food made us ill. The fungus was all we could properly digest. So we farmed it in the dark, tending it the way our ancestors had once tended snow cedar groves. We discovered the Chaurus. These massive insectoid creatures lived in the deepest caves, and they, like us, were adapted to complete darkness. They were aggressive at first, but we learned to domesticate them, to breed them, to raise them as livestock. Their chitin made excellent armor and weapons, far superior to anything we could forge or craft. Their venom was useful in hunting and war. Their meat supplemented our fungus diet. The Chaurus became central to our new existence. We developed a relationship with them, almost symbiotic, We raised them from eggs, cared for them, fed them. In return, they served as companions, guards, and resources. Some of the larger ones we could even ride, though this was rare and reserved for the strongest among us. We developed a new social structure, crude compared to our former civilization, but functional for our needs. The strongest led, the quickest, and most vicious gained status. Those who could breed the best Chaurus, who could navigate the tunnels most efficiently, who could fight most effectively, these became our leaders. It was primitive, tribal, but it worked. We even developed primitive crafting techniques. We could not forge metal like the Dwemer or our own ancestors, but we could work with what we found. Chaurus chitin could be shaped and hardened. Dwemer, metal could be scavenged and repurposed. We made crude armor, simple weapons, basic tools. Nothing compared to what we once created, but functional enough for our needs. Language continued to evolve, or perhaps devolve is more accurate. We communicated through clicks, hisses, guttural sounds that carried well in echoing caves. Some words from the old tongue remained twisted beyond recognition, commands for hunting, warnings of danger, simple declarations of territory. But poetry, philosophy, the complex ideas that had defined Snow Elf culture, these were gone completely, and we forgot. Generation by generation, we forgot more. The children born in darkness had no concept of light, of color, of the surface world. To them, Blackreach was all that existed. The glowing mushrooms were the only illumination they knew. The constant temperature of the deep caves was the only climate. The echo of dripping water and clicking Chaurus was the only music. Sometimes, in my worst moments, I wonder if the Dwemer intended this. If they knew they would disappear and wanted to ensure their slaves would never reclaim their former glory. What better revenge than to transform an entire civilization into monsters who would never remember what they lost? We raided the surface, not at first, but eventually. As our numbers grew and the underground's resources became strained, some of us ventured up, through cracks and fissures, through forgotten Dwemer tunnels that led to basements and caves. We emerged at night, when our blindness was less of a disadvantage. The Nords were terrified. They had thought us extinct, exterminated centuries ago. Now here we were, pale creatures crawling up from the earth to steal livestock, to attack travelers, to drag victims back into the dark. We became legends, monsters in bedtime stories. The goblins under the mountain. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from Skyrim, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. But we were not attacking out of evil. We were hunting. We were surviving. The Nords had taken our land, forced us underground, destroyed our civilization. Now we took from them what we needed to survive. It seemed fair in our simplified understanding. They had made us into monsters. We would be the monsters they deserved. The tragedy is that some part of me, some fragment buried deep, still remembers, still knows what we were. That is the curse of being one of the earlier generations, of having seen the sun before the darkness took it away forever. I exist in a state between what we were and what we became, too changed to ever reclaim my former self, but too aware to fully embrace the monster I have become. I watch the younger generations and I envy them. They do not remember. They do not carry the weight of loss that I do. They are Falmer completely, with no shadow of Snow Elf remaining to haunt them. For them, this existence is normal. This is simply what they are. But I remember the chantry of Oriel and our lost faith. I remember the libraries and the knowledge they held. I remember my daughter asking me what blue looked like and my failure to make her understand. I remember being beautiful. There is something you need to understand about consciousness in the dark. It changes, degrades, transforms into something that is not quite thought as you would recognize it. I exist now in a state that is difficult to explain. My mind is not what it was, the clarity I once possessed. the ability to reason through complex magical theories or compose poetry in 3 languages, that is gone. What remains is simpler, more immediate. Hunger, territory, threat, safety, the basic building blocks of existence. But underneath that simplicity, buried deep, is the memory of having been more. And that creates a kind of torment that no surface dweller can truly understand. Imagine knowing you have forgotten something crucial, but being unable to remember what it was. Imagine feeling the absence of knowledge without being able to grasp what knowledge you have lost. That is my existence. A constant, dull ache of awareness that I am less than I was, without the capacity to fully comprehend what I have lost. Chamdi, younger Falmer do not have this problem. Those born 3, 4, 5 generations after the descent, they have no such torment. This is simply what they are. They navigate the darkness with perfect confidence. They hunt with brutal efficiency. They tend the Chaurus and farm the fungus and raid the surface when needed. They exist in an eternal present, with no concept of a different past. I watch them sometimes, these descendants of my people. They are efficient predators. Their hearing has evolved beyond what even my generation possessed. They can hear a heartbeat from dozens of feet away. They can track prey by the sound of breathing, by the displacement of air as something moves. Their sense of smell has similarly sharpened. They can scent fear, identify individuals by odor, follow trails days old. Their bodies have fully adapted to underground life. They are hunched now, their spines curved to navigate low tunnels. Their arms are long and powerful, fingers tipped with claws useful for climbing and fighting. Their skin is pale beyond even what Snow Elves possessed, an almost translucent white that has never known sunlight. Their teeth are sharp, designed for tearing meat. They are stronger than we were, more resilient to injury, more resistant to poison and disease. In purely physical terms, they are superior to what we were, better suited for survival in this environment. Evolution, or perhaps devolution, has made them perfect for this life, but they will never write poetry, never solve complex mathematical proofs, never create art or pursue philosophy or worship with true understanding. They are hunters and survivors, nothing more. And I am caught between. Too changed to ever return to civilization, too aware to fully embrace what I have become. The social structure of the Falmer is primitive but effective. We organize in loose tribes based on territory. The strongest warriors lead through intimidation and violence. Disputes are settled through combat. Resources are claimed by force and held through strength. We have no justice system, no courts, no laws in any meaningful sense. We have hierarchy based on physical dominance and practical territory boundaries that shift based on who can enforce them. It is brutal. It is simple. It works for creatures that are no longer capable of abstract concepts like fairness or rights. We do take prisoners sometimes, surface dwellers who venture too deep into our territory. We do not take them for ransom or information. We take them as slaves, forcing them to work in the deepest, most dangerous areas. Or we feed them to the Chaurus, or we simply kill them for sport. There is no mercy in us anymore. Mercy requires empathy, and empathy requires the ability to imagine yourself in another's position. We have lost that capacity. The Chaurus are more than just livestock to us. They are companions in a way nothing else can be. They live in darkness as we do. They navigate by senses other than sight. They are adapted to this environment. In some strange way, we understand each other better than we understand surface dwellers. We raise them from eggs, tending them carefully. The young Chaurus are fragile, requiring constant attention and feeding. We bring them scraps of meat, cultivate specific fungi for them, protect them from predators. As they grow, they become useful. The smaller ones serve as scouts and companions. The larger ones, the reapers as surface dwellers call them, serve as guardians and war beasts. When a Chaurus reaches the end of its life cycle, something remarkable happens. The body undergoes Metamorphosis, transforming into a flying form called a Chaurus hunter. These are rarer, harder to control, but valuable for their mobility and their ability to spit poison at range more effectively than their larval forms. We use every part of the Chaurus. Their chitin becomes our armor and weapons, their venom coats, our blades. Their eggs are food. Their bodies, when they die, are fed to the young. Nothing is wasted. We have learned efficiency through necessity. The underground itself has become our world. Blackreach is vast beyond measure, connecting to countless other cave systems and Dwemer ruins throughout Skyrim. We know every passage, every chamber, every hidden alcove. We have mapped it in our minds through thousands of journeys, passing knowledge from generation to generation. There are places we avoid, deep pits that drop into unknown depths, pools of water that lead to flooded tunnels from which no one returns, sections of ruin where Dwemer machines still function, their mechanical guardians attacking anything that approaches, territories claimed by other predators, like the ancient giants that sometimes wander the largest caverns. But most of the underground belongs to us now. We are the dominant species in the darkness. Even the Chaurus respect our dominance, and we bred them. The few other creatures that inhabit these depths, the blind fish in underground rivers, the cave spiders, the ice wraiths that sometimes descend. From surface caves, they avoid us. We have become what the Dwemer intended, perfect slaves adapted to underground labor and survival. Except the Dwemer are not here to benefit from their creation. We are free in our prison, masters of our cage. Sometimes we find remnants of what we were. Ancient Snow Elf artifacts in the ruins, a piece of carved crystal, a fragment of text we can no longer read, a shrine to Oriel, hidden in a forgotten corner of some Dwemer facility. These things cause strange reactions in me, a stirring of something that might be memory, a feeling I cannot quite name. Loss, perhaps, though I barely remember what I have lost. The younger Falmer do not react to these objects at all. To them, they are just more debris in the ruins, meaningless remnants of whoever built these places before the Dwemer. They do not recognize them as pieces of their own heritage, because they have no concept of heritage. They exist entirely in the present. I have heard rumors, passed through the clicking language we now use, of Snow Elves who escaped our fate, hidden enclaves that found sanctuary without paying the Dwemer's price, the Chantry of Oriel, protected by its remote location and powerful magic. Perhaps other places we never knew about, Snow Elves who still live as we once did, unchanged, preserving what we have lost. I do not know if these rumors are true. I hope they are. I hope that somewhere, someone remembers us as we were. Someone who can look at the Falmer and know what we once were, what was stolen from us. Someone who can mourn what we have become. There is one who survived. Knight-Paladin Gelebor. I have never met him, but the rumors persist even in our degraded communication. A Snow Elf unchanged, serving still as guardian of the Chantry. He calls us the Betrayed. It is fitting. More fitting than Falmer, which was once our name for ourselves and now means something else entirely. Gelebor, the stories say, believes we might recover someday, that we might remember, relearn, reclaim some fragment of what we were, that if someone could communicate with us, establish contact, we might gradually return to civilization. It is a kind thought. It is also naive. You cannot undo generations of degradation. You cannot restore sight to those born without eyes. You cannot teach language to those whose brains have restructured around simpler communication. You cannot rebuild a civilization from creatures that barely understand what civilization means. We are not sleeping Snow Elves waiting to be awakened. We are Falmer. We are what centuries of poison, slavery, and darkness have made us. That cannot be undone any more than you can unburn wood or unfracture stone. But there is a deeper tragedy even than this. The Falmer are slowly evolving. Each generation is slightly more capable than the last. Our tools become marginally more sophisticated, our hunting strategies more complex, our social structures more organized. In another 1,000 years, we might develop true language again. In 2,000, perhaps basic civilization. In 5,000, who knows what we might become. But we will never become Snow Elves again. That race is dead. What we might eventually evolve into will be something new. Something that has no connection to what we were. The Falmer might one day reclaim intelligence, culture, even beauty, but it will not be our beauty. It will not be our culture. The Snow Elf civilization is gone forever, and nothing will bring it back. That is the true tragedy. Not that we were betrayed, enslaved, and transformed. Not that we suffered and continue to suffer, but that we lost something irreplaceable, something unique in all of Tamriel, and that loss is permanent. I remember standing in the great plaza and watching the aurora dance across the sky, reflected and amplified by our crystal architecture into a display of light that could make you weep. No one will ever see that again. That specific beauty is gone from the world forever. I remember the singing. Snow Elves sang in harmonies that incorporated magical resonance, creating sounds that were not just beautiful, but transformative, that could change the mood of everyone who heard them. That art is lost. No one knows the techniques anymore. The knowledge is dead. I remember the libraries, filled with philosophical texts that explored questions of existence, meaning, and the nature of divinity in ways the other races never quite grasped. Those texts are ash or lost in ruins that no one can read anymore. The ideas they contained are gone. Every aspect of Snow Elf culture, our unique contribution to the world, is lost. The Altmer have their culture intact. The Dwemer preserve theirs. The Bosmer, the Orsimer, even the Nords with their relatively young civilization, they all maintain their heritage. Only we have lost ours completely. And the worst part, the truly unbearable part, is that most of us do not even know enough to mourn it. The younger Falmer have no concept of what was lost. They cannot miss what they never knew existed. They suffer physically, yes. Life in the darkness is hard, dangerous, often short, but they do not suffer the way I suffer, from knowing that we were once more and are now less. I am one of the last who remembers. Perhaps the very last among the Falmer themselves, Gelebor aside. When I die, and I will die soon by the standards of the long-lived elves we once were, the memory dies with me. The Falmer will continue, but none of them will remember being Snow Elves. None will carry the weight of that loss. They will be free of it in a way I never was. Perhaps that is better. Perhaps it is kinder to forget completely than to remember incompletely. Perhaps the younger generations, unburdened by memory of what we were, are actually better off than I am. But I cannot help feeling that something important is lost when the last memory fades. When no one remembers what we were, it is as if we never existed at all. The Snow Elves will become myth, then legend, then forgotten completely. In 1,000 years, only the Falmer will remain, and no one will know they were ever anything else. So I leave this confession, this testimony, this warning, not because I think it will change anything, not because I believe anyone can help us or restore what we have lost, but because someone should know, someone should remember, someone should understand that the twisted creatures you fight in the darkness were once people, were once beautiful, were once capable of creating wonders. We were the Snow Elves. We built cities of crystal and light. We sang songs that made the stars weep. We explored the deepest mysteries of magic and meaning. We were happy. We were glorious. We were destroyed. And what remains? These hunched and eyeless creatures in the dark. These are not monsters that spawned from the depths. These are not some separate species of hostile creature. These are us. These are what we became when everything was taken away. That is the horrifying life of a Falmer. Not the darkness, or the violence, or the suffering, though those are real enough. The horror is being aware enough to know you were once more, but not aware enough to reclaim it. The horror is existing in the space between what you were and what you have become, unable to return to one or fully embrace the other. The horror is remembering beauty while living in darkness. The horror is knowing your name while being unable to speak it. The horror is being the last witness to your own civilization's death and being powerless to preserve anything but this. A warning, a confession, a final testimony to what we were before the darkness took us completely. Remember us, not as we are now, but as we were, before the betrayal, before the poison, before the fall. Remember the Snow Elves.